Okay everyone, in this second part of the lecture we're going to talk about this nexus between entrepreneurship and opportunity. So as we talked about earlier on, the sort of central theme that we see across definitions of entrepreneurship, and certainly central to Timon's definition, is this concept of entrepreneurs being focused on opportunity. So successful entrepreneurs are those that have the information necessary to be able to identify opportunities and the skills and ability to actually evaluate those opportunities and identify how likely it is that they'll play out in the future before others do. So really entrepreneurs are sort of the winners in that opportunity identification foot race. Now, there are some things that individuals can do to build this ability to spot opportunities and to take advantage of those opportunities. Certainly, by developing sort of cognitive frames that enable them to conceptualise of markets and to conceptualise of opportunities in different ways is a very important part of the entrepreneurial process. Sometimes though, people just have a knack of being able to spot trends before other people do. And some people just seem to have this ability to know when something is going to happen and to be able to identify that and take advantage of those opportunities. So one of the things you need to do if you're going to try and build your own entrepreneurial abilities is really try and build this cognitive awareness that you have of the world around you and trends that might be happening in the world around you, so that you can identify opportunities effectively. So an important dynamic of this model is the capacity to vision the future, to look at what's happening and visualize into the future, and evaluate different opportunities and determine which are the most effective in terms of being able to use our resources and team efforts to achieve some sort of outcome based on that opportunity. So again, it's really important for us as entrepreneurs, as business people, to build this identification skill. Now, one of the problems we have, one of the things we know is that when we look at the world around us, we know that markets, industries tend to be very fluid and dynamic these days. There's lots of change happening in the world around us. And it's often very difficult to get accurate pictures of trends and future realities as they might emerge. And so again, people who have high levels of connectiveness to their environment, to the industry and context in which they compete, are probably better positioned to understand entrepreneurial opportunities as they might emerge. And it's important to recognise that entrepreneurship has evolved far beyond just the simple process of startup. Okay, so entrepreneurs are now about setting up businesses of all types, and we're seeing entrepreneurship in all types of organisations at various stages of their entrepreneurial development. So again, this skill for entrepreneurial ability to identify opportunities is a really critical part of this process. Now, while there are many opportunities out there, many ventures tend to begin with an idea for a product that entrepreneurs think people want. Okay, so we sort of start by looking at customers and understanding customers and thinking through very carefully what it is that they might want, because at the end of the day, they're the people who are going to buy our products. It's all well and good to think of an idea that's beneficial to us, that we think is attractive, but if our customers don't find these things attractive, then why would they possibly buy them? So really what we're talking about in this sort of startup and opportunity identification process is a couple of key things. Firstly, we're talking about customer discovery, okay? Trying to identify who the potential customers might actually be. Where are these customers? How is the market segmented? What does the size of the market look like? You might find that in a market there are 2 or 3 consumers that have a need for a particular product type, but it's a very small segment, so it's not really worth trying to target them. Similarly, you might find a large group of customers who actually want a product, and it might be more viable to actually target those customers. We need to think about the notion of customer validation. Okay, so being able to identify which represent valid customers for our product. Again, not everyone in a market who expresses a desire for the product is actually a genuine customer. It's really only those customers that actually have the purchasing power and the desire to back up that interest that represent real customers for our business. And we need to think about the customer creation process. How do we turn someone from just simply being a tire kicker, someone who's just looking at our products, into someone who is an active consumer of our product? And the more we're able to do that, the more we're able to convince people to buy our product, not only once, but on a repeat basis, the more that we're able to build and grow our organisation. Now, doing this is quite challenging, and as you can imagine, it can be quite complex. And a lot of work has been done recently in the notion of lean startup. Okay, this idea that we need to find a simplified process that will help us to be able to do these things, to be able to identify opportunities and to work through those opportunities through to a product and actually build a marketable venture that will be successful for our organisation. Now, Ries, again 2011, is one of the main drivers of this approach, and he argues that lean startup is a set of practices for helping entrepreneurs to increase their odds of building a successful startup. And so he proposes the model, or Ries proposes the model, that is likely to increase the success of our organisation in being able to start up new ventures. So this is what Ries's lean startup process looks like. It's a simple process, but quite an effective process that organisations need to go through if they're going to be effective at generating new businesses. Now, again, this is very much a process model. So when we talk about a process model, we're talking about a series of ongoing steps that organisations might undertake if they're going to be successful in being entrepreneurial. So we'll start in the centre of the figure, and we start with the idea about ideas. You know, organisations are constantly generating lots of new ideas, and if you're going to be successful in business, you need to have a stream of ideas you can access to. And so in that process, once we've identified our ideas, we need to then think about how we code those ideas. How do we classify them? You know, how do we see whether these ideas represent meaningful opportunities? And then we need to get data that might help us to make a decision around whether these ideas are actually any good. Now, sitting around this is also a series of external processes that come in the lean startup model. So with the process of going from idea to coding is really around building. So building the concept up, identifying what the opportunity might be. The process of moving from code to data is all about measurement. So we've identified what we're interested in. We now need to measure that and gain data on it so that we can understand it more effectively. And once we've gained that data, we then need to learn from that data so that we can develop more ideas about the market in the future. So you can see there's this sort of continual process that we go from idea to build to code to measure to data to learn to idea. And this continual cycle of a process in coming up with opportunities for our business. So really, the central part of this model is this idea of build, measure, learn. Okay, so as an organisation, we need to build things, we need to build on our ideas, we need to measure how successful we are, and we need to learn from our past activities so that we're continually learning as an organisation. Again, we'll come back to this idea throughout the course of this semester, that learning is a critical part of the entrepreneurial process. We need to be constantly learning from our past efforts and try to ensure that we make the best take the best actions for the organisation in the future. And that between these phases, there are certain things that we need to do in terms of generating ideas, coding and gaining data. So in other words, the process of entrepreneurship is really this ongoing loop of turning ideas into products, measuring customers' reactions to these products and their behaviours against these built products, then learning whether to persevere or with these existing products, so whether we should continue to make these products, or whether we should come up with new ideas and repeating that process all over again. You notice there the word pivot. Quite often what entrepreneurs are doing is trying something, it doesn't quite work, and so they pivot slightly. So a pivot means you're sort of anchored still here, but you change your focus slightly and try again in a bit more of a different space. If that doesn't work, again you pivot a little bit more and you try again in another space. So Ries really calls this the application of lean thinking to the process of innovation. So simplifying the innovation process as much as we possibly can, so that all organisations, all individuals can engage in the entrepreneurship process. And really raises sort of, when developing this model, is really basing it on 5 key principles. Firstly, that entrepreneurs are everywhere, that there's a whole range of people in society, in organisations, who can come up with new ideas and identify new opportunities. And so it's not just 1 or 2 people. If we engage as many people as possible in that process, we're going to come up with the greatest possible number of ideas. He also believes that entrepreneurship is management, that you can actually control and manage the process. It's not a chance event, it's something that organisations can actually build on and grow over time. It's very much is based on the notion of validated learning, that whenever we engage in a process, we should learn from that process, and that learning should be validated by comparing what happened this time with our past bank of experiences to see how we can improve our activities in the future. We talked about this idea about build, measure and learn, that we should build products, take them to market, see how people respond, measure their responses, learn from those activities, and then engage in a feedback process over time. And also being innovative in how we account for success and thinking about the success that an organisation might be able to achieve from its new business ventures. So again, when we think about entrepreneurship, we're really thinking about this idea about how do we develop opportunities? How do we identify opportunities for the organisation? And Gillen and Spring build on the work of Ries and say that we need to start off by understanding what we mean by a decent opportunity. So what is a good opportunity? Well, a good opportunity is one that creates value. Okay, so this is value that doesn't currently exist. If the opportunity destroys value or reduces the total value prospect for the organisation and for the customer, it's not a good opportunity. Opportunities need to be attractive. Attractiveness is really defined by how easy it is for us to take advantage of that opportunity. There's often many opportunities out there in the world around us, but we simply can't take advantage of all of those different things. We need to think about how durable an opportunity is. Will this opportunity last forever? Or is there a defined time frame in which we have a window to actually take advantage of this opportunity? And then we also need to think around this very closely about what our business model and business concept is going to look like. Based on this opportunity, how do we respond to this opportunity with a set business concept? We then add to that those things we talked about before. The process of customer discovery, so identifying who the customers are, of validating them as genuine customers, so determining whether they actually have the purchasing power necessary to buy the product, and turning them from people who are boldly interested in our product to people who are actually going to continue to purchase our product over time. And all of those sorts of things sit within the space of commercialising our ideas. And if we can get all those things together effectively, if we can identify the opportunity and determine whether the customers actually exist and are willing to actually buy that product, and then we build our company around that, we try and build a company that enables us to take advantage of that opportunity, then we should be successful. Now, just to wrap up this section on opportunity analysis, we need to make a distinction between commercial and social entrepreneurship. And we've probably already a couple of times talked about this notion of social entrepreneurship and what it might be. So when we talk about commercial entrepreneurship, we're talking about a focus on developing breakthrough products that are targeted at customers and trying to gain new market share in a for-profit business. Whereas social entrepreneurship is focused on servicing basic, long-standing needs within society. So social entrepreneurship might happen in the community sector. It might be around the provision of health services or aged care, or innovating in sort of environmental sustainability programs. So again, organisations can use entrepreneurship in a commercial sense to develop products that they can take to market, but they can also use it to drive social innovation. And for commercial entrepreneurs, an opportunity must be large enough and have a significant enough market for us to invest our efforts in terms of taking advantage of that opportunity. Whereas for a social entrepreneur, what we're trying to do is find a a niche within a market where we believe we can have a difference, where we can have an impact and improve the overall standing of people and society as a whole. So social entrepreneurs are very much concerned about that notion of corporate social responsibility. So while opportunity recognition is central to the process of entrepreneurship, successful exploitation of these opportunities is really dependent on these notions of customer discovery, customer value validation, customer creation, and company building. In the next part of the lecture, we're going to talk a little bit about the characteristics of an entrepreneur. So what is it that makes a person an entrepreneur?